Erased Destiny 2, The Knower. Chapter 1, An Evil Mother-in-Law. Working in the court for Etien was as easy as gathering herbs, and for Merigold, it was more than she ever dreamt of. But it had some drawbacks as well, mainly lack of free time. Looking for Nathan and attending trials at the same time was impossible. On the other hand, Nathan hadn't contacted her at all. Maybe he didn't want to be together. Etien sighed. Nothing was easy, if it concerned Nathan. Who was trying to summon hot mud, folded her hands in wrong way, and created big wave instead. Water overturned flask of oil, and by the time Etien closed it again, a third of the oil leaked on the brown grass.
Ouch, I am sorry. Goldie, are you all right?
Yes, nothing bad happened, except I lost a lot of my favorite oil. The perfect balance of exoticism, soothing warmth, and intriguing bitterness.
I'm glad you still like it, Mom.
Squealed, and Etien squinted. This was not how she had imagined meeting the Lady of the Crystal Palace. She certainly did not plan to hold this meeting naked. Clad in a silver robe, Zuzu wore a navy blue fur coat on top. Her navy blue high-heeled shoes complemented the whole perfectly, but they were not suitable for walking on the mud. Therefore, Zuzu floated a foot above the ground.
Forgive me, lady, but news of your arrival has not reached me. Queen of the night.
Etien repeated the sentence, once spoken by Sarah. The ruler visited her friend when she was nursing a hangover, sleeping under the table with her lover. Etien, who didn't consider other people's plans in her schedule, that time had to wait.
We used to bathe together and you didn't see anything wrong with it. And you probably remember that my silver eyes see through your smoke, don't you?
Zuzu laughed. Her delicate golden crown and long golden earrings harmonized beautifully with her intense green eyes, but did not match at all her silver robe, fortunately almost completely covered by fur. The stress of meeting Zuzu pushed Merigold into a corner of consciousness. Etien, for her part, wondered why the crystal didn't adapt the robe to the weather conditions, and figured it was Zuzu who forbade it.
As a wraith, I did not take baths. I was looking at you, splashing in the pool you built yourself. How did you find me? Despite so many barriers?
Thanks to Artos.
A beautifully packaged trap. The second time I fell for the same thing. Shame on me.
Umi took advantage of the fact that no one was paying attention to her to slyly retreat between the trees. As jogging before, she had the feeling that she had fallen into a fairy tale that was not hers. The unusual situation made her extremely curious. That's why she listened carefully to the conversation that the smoke-covered, naked Merigold was having with an unknown woman, resembling the scout that visited them earlier, the woman who titled much younger girl her mother. Etien recalled the barrier spell once cast on Artos by Kyle, the Eighth Lord, her predecessor. Not to find Etien, but to prevent her from leaving the palace. They all picked on her Pegasus. If she paid more attention to life magic, she would have been able to notice something was casted on Artos.
I am sorry. Don't be angry, please. I wanted to know how you were doing. I missed you.
The thing is that I lost my power. Everything but death. I'm not good for anything.
You think I was looking for you because... Mom, I absolutely have no intention of using you. I'm glad you came back. I'm glad you remember who you were.
I don't remember. Most of the time, I am Merigold, who has mastered a few spells I can still use, and to whom I show every interesting excerpts of my former life. Those which have not escaped yet. Have you found Nathan? I feel incomplete without him.
Zuzu shook her head. No extremely capable, multi-talented boy with flashes of former consciousness had appeared. She didn't have to say anything, because Etien read everything from the expression on her face. Just like the old days when they used to play magic guessing games in the desert. Whenever Zuzu tried to hide something, she would lower her eyes. Whenever she didn't know something, she would look above her interlocutor's head. Etienne's laughter somewhat eased the tense atmosphere of the unusual encounter. The death mage was sure that the years spent on the throne would teach Zuzu to hide her emotions, hide her thoughts and plans. Meanwhile, guessing her intentions did not cause Etien the slightest problem.
I thought maybe Aelin. Gabriel once found Nathan in another world.
Aelin's powers were formed in a slightly different way. She is unrivaled in hypnotizing people and forcing them to follow her orders. She is also capable of sharing telepathic discussions, even over considerable distances. But with mind searching, she doesn't do well.
I am sorry. I'm thinking exclusively about myself again, right? Say, how is your living in the Crystal Palace? I didn't manage to see you off.
Pleasant. I like talking to people, presiding over balls, making speeches. All the things that, according to Nathan, you mother preferred to dump on someone else. Daily officiating tires me far less than you told me.
A slight smile wandering on Zuzu's lips testified that the woman's thoughts had fled far from the conversation at hand. She uttered pre-prepared sentences, thoughtful words chosen to fit the situation. There was no emotion in them, no sincerity, no former Zuzu. Instead, there was sadness and coldness, which Etien had not seen in Zuzu before. Therefore, she watched the facial expressions of her foster daughter with interest and attention. The crystal preserved Zuzu. It kept her body from aging, stole her energy, and tapped into her thoughts. Whether it influenced woman's desires and dreams, Etien did not know. Had it turned her into an obedient puppet? She hoped that Zuzu had not surrendered to the former rulers, that she had remained herself.
I guess that in return you avoid courts, wars, torture, investigations, duels.
Nor did I organize any battle between mages and seekers. How well you know me. Sometimes I wish I was more like you, especially lately.
Finally, we come to the reason for your visit.
Zuzu fell silent. With Etien, the hardest part was pretending that everything was fine. She couldn't lie to her mother, couldn't admit that she wasn't doing well with governing. From a strategic point of view, leading the Baleen was less important than a well-executed reconnaissance. Zuzu distantly tried to estimate the level of power Etien had at her disposal. However, the spell of the Queen of the Night with which the girl surrounded herself prevented Zuzu from doing so. They were able to compensate for the lack of spells with a linked curse, while the lack of power with crystals, but unfortunately only to a small extent. How much energy did Etien have left? Was she able to help Zuzu find Noemi?
Let's talk about you for a change. What are you going to do?
I will definitely not return to the Crystal Palace. Not as Merigold. My guess is that Elstar was killed. What about Noemi?
I don't know. She ran away from the palace and I haven't seen her since she took over. I haven't come across any other child with wings either. Can I do something for you, Mom?
Zuzu hoped that Etien would not wish to be transferred to another body. She was pained by the cold, official atmosphere in which the meeting was conducted. She didn't expect the evasive Etien to throw herself into her foster daughter's arms, but she could at least show joy. Dispel the spell that was clouding her. From Etienne's list of dreams, she ruled out items that Zuzu was unsuitable for, like reclaiming her former body, whose powers, after all, the current ruler used. Etien also didn't want the vampires to find out about her return, and consulting Gabriella or Nadia would bring a delegation of all the undead inhabiting their world to the house of Merigold.
For the moment, my priority is to find Nathan, and to this task I devote myself with pleasure. Don't tell anyone you met me. I could use a second sword. And pajamas. Oh, and that tiny goblet. For the retching mage. My favorite dresses and shoes won't fit me now, unfortunately. Few power crystals. Potions of clear mind. It is so troublesome to make them. Official black robe and night seeker's uniform, my current size. My mother's coat made of phoenix feathers. Thank you, Zuzu.
Seemingly the older of the women dissolved into the light. After a moment, the black and silver sword of the ruler appeared where she stood. Etien touched it with her fingertips, fearing that it was about to disappear. She had no right to use it. She did not ask for it.
Nice weapon. Is it yours?
Sort of. I am sorry. I wasn't expecting Zuzu's visit.
Say, was it the Lady of the Crystal Palace?
Yes, the 11th Lady of the Crystal Palace. My name is Etien. I was the 9th. Then my son Elstar, and now my daughter Zuzu, sat on the throne. After I died, I ended up in Merigold's body, so we both live in it. I know it can be difficult to understand.
Etien glued together a belt made of poison ivy, behind which she slipped her naked sword. It did not penetrate her body, so she had to carry it with her. She squirmed at the memory of her former derision of iron-clad warriors. Fortunately, the weapon drawn from the crystal weighed little.
I'll take you home. Hop on the Pegasus.
Was the fighting? Was it you or Merigold?
Usually me. Moralizing your father, also me. Finally resurrecting you after your encounter with Jared's knife. As Lady of the Crystal Palace, I had a great deal of knowledge, which Merigold takes advantage of. Teaching you, for example.
Artos turned toward Sintra, and Etien contemplated how to find Nathan, whose neither name, nor appearance, nor personality was fixed. Variable as the weather in spring, adapting well to his surroundings, easily picking up foreign languages and customs. She didn't listen to chatter, her questions, requests, and opinions. She had so little time to move freely in her borrowed body that she didn't want to waste a minute.